So hello and welcome to 40 Tips and Tricks with IntelliJ for doing Spring development. My name is Yann Cébron. I work on the Spring framework support in IntelliJ IDEA.
And my name is Stéphane Nicoll, and the reason I'm here, I'm working on the Spring Boot team, and the reason I'm here, I'm being the proxy for all the tooling issues in IntelliJ and improving the support in IntelliJ for Spring.
So today we are going to show you some tips and tricks for being productive doing Spring development in IntelliJ, but we are also going to talk about the things or the ideas, motivations behind some stuff, especially about inspections or highlighting in the IDE. And so you will both learn to use the IDE, but as well learn some stuff about Spring Framework, I hope. So that's the two motivations for this talk. And before we begin, I want to raise a very quick poll. Who's using IntelliJ IDEA already to do? Whoa.
Okay, so 95%.
So who's the guy who's not using IntelliJ yet? Okay. Second question, who's using Spring Boot in this room? That's a
50,
real,
yeah, 50%.
That's a nice number. Who is willing to admit that he still uses XML configuration files?
Don't be shy.
Okay,
That's 10.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry? What?
Okay, before we jump into the presentation, we're going to do live coding only. With, as I said, some background information about the stuff I'm doing in the IDE. Please bear with us. We are using the very latest version of IntelliJ IDEA. It's early access program from last week, built from sources. So if anything breaks, it will be fixed very soon.
Yeah, built from sources with a few patches.
Yes.
Conference-driven development or bug fixes.
Yeah, patched this morning. The demo project is available on GitHub if you want to check it out. We also published the script we wrote to do the talk, so you can actually do the step-by-step thing at home if you want to see it on your own projects. So let's switch to the IDE. I hope everyone can read this from behind. Unfortunately, the screen resolution is not what I would like it to be. So the first thing we notice is this notification here in the right corner. And yeah, it warns us that something is wrong with the Spring configuration in this project. And this is a very important step when you use IntelliJ with Spring or with any other framework libraries. You need to tell the IDE some basic information about your setup with regard to the specific framework you're using. And that's actually a step that many people seem to miss when they start using Spring in IntelliJ. The reason behind this is that Spring setup varies so much between different projects, we cannot make guesses, right? So you have some context, maybe some relationship between contexts. You have to tell the IDE what your configuration looks like.
So if there is one thing to remember from this talk is this tip, because it might not be obvious to you that you're missing actually most of the Spring support in IntelliJ IDE because this is not configured. So if you used to actually ignore that pop-up, please don't. And inspect, go into that configuration screen. And for a very basic, as we will see later, for a Spring Boot application, for instance, it's auto-detected. So just creating the facet, like Yann is going to show you, is enough. If you have I wouldn't call that legacy, but if you have an XML-based configuration with Spring MVC, then you have two contexts, one child for MVC and the main application context. It's actually 2 or 3 clicks away. So please do this, because then the IDE would be much smarter to assist you about the beans available in the context and the relationships.
Exactly. So I opened our first demo code, which is just a very simple configuration class. And as you can see, it's already highlighted as a warning, telling us the class is not used. And the second warning, which is relevant to what we just explained, the application context is not set up in the IntelliJ project. So this is stupid work. So let's use the IDE to do this, there's a quick fix to create the Spring facet for us. So I'm just going to invoke that, which will bring up the dialog. Just close that. And now the highlighting is gone, so IntelliJ now knows that this belongs to some context.
And one hint for you to, in your own project, to check whether or not that facet is configured properly is if you open a configuration file and you don't have those gutter icons on the left. So if you don't have those icons on the left for your bin declaration, for instance, probably something is wrong in your config and it might be worth revisiting that. So maybe you can show the shortcuts of file project structure to...
yes, yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to switch on the...
the links, you mean?
No. Oh,
it is. No,
it is switched on.
No, what I mean is manually. So file, can you show the how we can access to that manually? So file, project structure.
Yeah, that's just something which is not on the screen. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So the action to invoke this is project structure, which will bring up this dialog where you can see the list of modules, libraries, and so on and so on. Going into the module, which has a subnode for all the facets of this project. So the Spring facet is located there if you're looking for it.
And if there is no Spring facet, there's the plus button to create it.
So it's still highlighted, and because we just created the Spring facet, we didn't create a context yet. So we need to create some context now and assign this configuration to this context. So there's some kind of logical structure.
So just to rephrase what context is, it's if you're starting your application, your Spring application context manually, you give it a list of files or a list of Java classes or a list of XML locations. So a context in IntelliJ IDE is that thing. So you may have more than one. Usually you have one. And right now we don't have, so we're going to create a one with that file.
Yeah. Again, I'm using intention. Alt-Enter is your friend here. Anytime you see some highlighting. And since I don't have any context, it offers me to create a new one. I'm just going to call this the main context. Done. And immediately we can see on the left side a number of gutter icons appearing. This hints us that the Spring support is now aware of this configuration and understands anything happening in this class. So the first icon we want to take a quick look is this one here. And this opens the Spring model dependencies dialog. So we configured a context with one configuration class, but as you can see, we have a lot of other stuff going on with regard to configuration. We have some imports, we have some component scan here. We're going to look at this in a minute. So we don't see the full context. We just see the main configuration class in the Spring facet. Opening this configuration graph shows us all the imports, all the component scans happening, being declared on this main configuration class. So we have all the connecting points showing us the relationship or the hierarchy of this configuration. And I can actually select any node or any edge. I have some tooltips here as well telling me how many beans are defined in this specific configuration file, and just hit F4 to navigate or open it. And we can try another nice feature for this configuration graph. So I'm duplicating the configuration for component scan in this XML file, going back and reopening the Spring model dependencies graph. And now we see a number of red arrows here. This hints us that we have cycles in our configuration, which
is, well, it's something that you should avoid doing. I mean, the number of requests that we have on the Spring Framework issue tracker to handle those cycles is like crazy. And probably, I think Jürgen might regret, or already regrets, having introduced that feature in the framework. But tools like this really help you to realize that you're actually importing the same class twice. So if, for instance, if you don't define an ID for your bean, and you have that kind of cycle, it's going to create the bean twice, even if you have a single toe prototype, because it's simply going to import the same file twice. There is no ID. It's going to generate one, which is unique. So you'll get two beans instead of one, and you have no idea why. So that kind of tool is really useful, I think, to detect cycles and fix your config.
Okay, so much about the model dependencies graph, and I think to understand like how the full context looks at runtime, which you cannot see right from the code, right? So let's take a quick look at the other gutter icons we have here. First, at this one, component scan. Everyone knows what this is, I guess. So,
but maybe something you don't know is if you click on the gutter icon, you'll see the list of things that have been found. Can you do that? Maybe?
Yeah, so
that's
what I just did.
So that's really, really nice, right? So you have this component scan instruction, you click on it, you see, okay, those beans have been detected. If your bean is not in the list, okay, maybe something is wrong, it's in the wrong package, or you made a mistake with the package or whatnot.
There's code insight nearly everywhere in IntelliJ, and if there's one thing you take away from this talk is try to use features you know from Java or other contexts in Spring context. You will be surprised at how many things actually work in different locations and in different contexts. So for import resource, for example, we also have code insight here. We have the full auto-completion here. I can control click on the XML file and navigate actually there, go back. So it's very easy to navigate and inspect your context from the editor. One last thing about all these gutter icons, they might become a nuisance to you, maybe.
Yes. Especially one that you're going to hide, right?
Yeah. There's a new setting under the editor general category. And as you can see, the Spring Framework subcategory has quite a lot of entries here. You can enable or disable any category by itself. So you can tune this to your likings.
There is also the My Component Scan that we haven't looked yet.
Yeah. So there's also support for meta-annotations. Maybe Stéphane can quickly explain what a meta-annotation is.
So we've already saw that. I can't remember at the keynote maybe. So meta-annotation is a way to compose a custom annotations with existing ones. So for instance, you could have something like get, which is, or maybe post, which is request mapping method post. So that's shorter. And if you have many of those, that might be useful. Or you might have a compose, actually in the JUnit 5 talk yesterday, so that for JUnit 5 as well, like transactional test, instead of having two annotations, you have one. So in Spring Framework, what we've did recently is this new annotation called alias for, which allows you not only to meta-annotate, so create your own annotation, but also create your own attributes that refer to an existing annotation. So the My Component Scan here is an example of that, where the base package, so the standard attribute base package of component scan has been renamed to this fancy attribute. And what you can see is that IntelliJ detects that and offers you the auto-completion even with your custom annotation. So if My Component Scan is used, you still have the gutter icon with the list of classes.
And as you would guess, you also have code inside the alias for annotation. So we are referring or redefining an existing attribute from the original component scan annotation here. So we have to tell it which attribute we are referring to. And this, of course, is even navigatable. So it's very easy to set up stuff like this right in the IDE. And the gutter icon to navigate to the beans scanned by this new, our own component scan annotation is working as well, because we know that it's a component scan meta annotation, so the same level of support will be provided for that as well. Right, on to the next topic, which is the Spring Tool window. We are going to do this very quickly because it's very easy to understand. So we've seen the Spring Facet where you can see context, configuration files. This is another method of browsing this hierarchy here. which is very nice, especially if you have many modules with many contexts. And it allows you to browse this in a tree and go down to the bean level as well. So you can actually see the beans being defined by this specific configuration, which is selected in this hierarchy. And we can see some Java doc here as well. We can even see, not on the screen, you have to believe me, it understands also the Spring description annotation, respectively the XML tag, to give a semantic description of the Spring bean. So you can just browse the list of beans and understand what they are about, what type they are about. You can, of course, click on those, navigate to this right from the tool window and inspect what the code is actually doing here. And it also works the other way around. So if my current focus is, for example, on this bean here, I can press the shortcut Alt F1, which invokes select in action. And this allows us to select the currently focused element in any of the tool windows which support this kind of navigation. So I can select this in the Spring tool windows, and it will automatically select the tree path down to this bean, going upwards the hierarchy of the configuration file, the context, and the corresponding module. So this is very nice to see where is this bean defined actually. Because it could be component scanned, it could be imported by some other configuration. It's sometimes a bit hard to grasp just looking at the code. All right, so much about the Spring tool window. There's a few other things you can do here, but they are very easy to explore by yourself. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of which.
Thank you for the introduction to the next topic. So,
oh yeah, so field injection is bad, you know?
Yeah.
So
and, yeah,
I thought that it would be nice for that we
someone,
warn you about it.
Yeah, someone famous said it a few years ago, and it's still true. Believe us. So this is a warning on the auto-wired thing. That's another inspection by the Spring Framework support in IntelliJ. And maybe Stéphane can give us a quick hint why auto-wiring on fields is so bad.
I need to take a picture first.
Sorry.
We're going to show you that. So field injection, why you shouldn't use it. First of all, a quick recap with Spring Framework 4.3. You can do constructor injection in configuration classes now, so there's no reason for you to use field injection even there. The problem with field injection is we can only associate the value, we can only inject the dependency once the instance has been created, because we need the instance to effectively set the field. What that means is in your constructor, even though it's a field, if you're trying to use it, you'll get a null pointer exception because we hadn't a chance to actually set it. So it's a bit of a confusing thing. And the other thing is constructor injection allows you to have immutable dependencies, which I think is very nice. There's no reason for you to change the reference to something that the framework has injected for you.
However, the constructor is part of the public contract, which means that if you are making an API, you cannot just randomly add new
Right.
new attributes. Or
Right.
you have to keep several constructors and make workarounds and make crap.
You have setter injection for that. And that's more obvious with a setter injection that's going to happen after the constructor.
Okay, but then you still have to really speak about setter injection and not constructor injection everywhere, constructor injection because
That's not what I said. I said field injection versus constructor injection.
the whole conference, everyone, constructor injection.
Okay.
Not like that.
But you can still do it if you want. You'll just get a warning. That's it.
Yeah. And
You can disable the warning, by the way.
yeah,
Yeah,
there might be someone called Oliver which will hunt you down, and so nevertheless we're going to show you a very nice feature according to Oliver Gierke's law to convert this to constructor injection. Again, Alt Enter on this warning, and it will be smart enough to create the constructor for us, putting the auto-wired annotation on the constructor now, of course. And there's apparently still a problem with this. We have a red warning here which tells us that it could not perform the auto-wiring because there's actually two types, two beans of type long defined somewhere in our context. And yeah.
And that's where it's very important to configure the context, because if you configure the context properly, the Spring facet properly in IntelliJ, you'll get all those nice hints that something is wrong in your config.
Yeah. And for that to work, we have to know which configurations belong together and form a semantic unit, so we can tell you about things like this, duplicate bean definitions, cycles and stuff. Again, there's a quick fix for that, add qualifier, and this will automatically also propose us the candidate bean names which match the required type we want to use for auto-wiring here. So no long hunting or searching for the right beans, just use auto-completion again. That's it. So the next area we want to touch is working with profiles in Spring and IntelliJ. So profiles, maybe Stéphane can give a quick introduction.
Right. So profile is a way for you to tune your configuration based on the environment, for instance. So you may have a QA profile, a production profile, a test profile, and you may change certain beans according to the environment. And it's very important, again, that IntelliJ knows in which profile you're actually working on. So what profile is realistic in what you're developing right now. And there is a very good way to do that. There's a hint on the top to allow you to change the profile, so to set a profile. And when you do that, you'll get the inspection according to that profile.
Right. So we have apparently two profiles here, named only with stupid demonstration names. Nevertheless, I'm going to activate one specific profile, which will automatically deactivate all the beans coming or being defined on the other profile. So what is going to happen here now? This is turning red because this is actually coming from the main profile and not from the custom profile. So the IDE now knows that we are working in this profile and highlights the or adjusts all the inspection and the context according to this currently selected profile. And of course, the auto-completion now also works according to the custom profile being selected, and we get only this selection here.
By the way, it would be smarter if it would remove the old value. If you can change that, please.
And actually, we can remove the qualifier now because we only have one bean of that type, but I'm not going to show this. One quick hint, selecting the current profile is also available now on the Spring tool window. So if you are at some level of the hierarchy in your Spring configuration, be it the module or the context or the configuration file, you can invoke a context menu here, and it will automatically pre-select the currently selected context or hierarchy, show you the profiles defined in this context or in this node, and allow you to switch it right from the tool window. No relationship. No, there is no relationship. Maven profiles are a separate topic. You can also activate and deactivate Maven profiles in the IDE, but that's done via the Maven tool window. And then it will, of course, need to re-import or adjust the current set of dependencies according to your profile. And the IDE will work with that then.
So I'm caching now.
Right.
So what we're going to show you now is where the tool may fill a gap for getting started experience. So when you have many ways of customizing something, it may be hard to understand which one you should use or what values you need to input, what kind of values you need to input to make it work. So obviously there is the documentation and the Java doc, and you may happen to read that, maybe. But if you don't, it's really nice to have some kind of assistance in the IDE because it will also teach you about the feature.
Mm-hmm. So I'm setting up another separate context now for the caching framework support we are going to demonstrate you. Again, I'm using the old enter quick fix, quickly setting up this caching config. Again, gutter icons reappear, and we are going to look at the caching service, which is now activated by this separate context. And there's something IntelliJ doesn't like about this kind of setup. Why is that?
So yeah, the inspection here tells you that not to put aspect on interface because it's an implementation detail, and recommend you to put those implementation specific information on the implementation.
Right. So we are going to be good boys, disable this, go to the implementation, and we can see it's already prepared. The cacheable annotation is put on the implementation method here. Still, it doesn't like it because it requires a cache name. What's the cache name?
So that's a funny story, actually. Previously, the cache name attribute of the cacheable annotation was mandatory. So you had to provide one value, at least one value. So everything is fine. If you try to add that annotation, you'll get a compiler warning because the attribute is not set. And we got some feedback from the community asking us to improve the current support. And one thing led to actually remove the mandatory flag on that attribute because we have now many more ways to actually provide the value. So as we will see, there is a class level annotation you can use. There is also a cache resolver, so a bean that you can implement to at runtime figure out which cache to use. So in that case, you shouldn't have to provide a hard code value at the annotation level. So what's really nice again with the tooling is that the tooling warns you that maybe there's a problem. And you can obviously ignore that if you have a cache resolver, and I think that the thing is smart enough if you set a cache resolver to remove the warning. But if you upgrade to a new version of the framework and you see samples online and you start using that feature, you don't really know how it works, you get immediate feedback about something that might go wrong.
So I just fixed the warning by adding or enabling this cache config annotation, which sets the cache name globally on this class. And this brings us to our next topic, which is support for Spring EL. So Spring EL is an expression language with specific features to access Spring context, Spring beans. It adds some operations keywords to the expression language you already know from JSP. And we have added quite a lot of new code insight for that, specifically for frameworks like caching, but also Spring Security and some others we are going to show in a minute. And this little string here is actually a Spring EL condition. So it's highlighted slightly differently. You cannot see this on this beamer, but there's a different background here, so it's obvious that there's a Spring EL expression here. And we get auto-completion here as well. And we have two parameters on this method, start and end, and we can refer to them right in this Spring EL expression on this method because the IDE knows that at runtime, Spring will provide those parameters to the expression evaluation contexts. So those will be available under the name the parameters have.
So the SpEL, so the Spring Expression Language, has some common features, but every annotation may have an extra root context with extra attributes. In the case of the caching, for instance, you can inject the cache names, you can inject the target, you can inject the name of the method, for instance, if you want to do some magic stuff about it. And it also injects the parameters of the method if you want to pass that to some bean to figure out whether or not you need to actually cache the value. Mm. So again, this is also the feedback that we got is what kind of parameters can I use in that thing? And if you look at the Java doc of condition, you'll see that there is a list of the things you can use, but it's obviously way better if you can autocomplete and see them. Yeah. Yes.
Referencing beans in the condition is a new feature. If I'm using an old version, should you stop recommending beans?
So the question is, referencing bean names is a newer feature, and no, we don't distinguish this yet, but I'm currently actually working on improving the Spring EL support, so I hope that's going to make it into the next version, so we
Most of the time there is a Spring Framework check for the feature, and if IntelliJ IDE detects you're using a certain Spring version, it removes things that are not available in that version. Unfortunately, that's not the case yet for this, and there is a few others that needs to be fixed that we actually found while preparing this presentation, so that's fun.
Yeah, so that's why we do presentations, to find bugs in our software. As you can see, there's a couple of entries here. Stéphane just said there's a couple of extra variables available. These are all coming from the cacheable annotation. So we know about this. And you can actually also click here and navigate to the declaration, which is this parameter. And I'm just going to show this because it's so nice. We can rename this in the expression, and it will rename the parameter for us because it knows about this relationship. Yes,
yes.
So it knows about bean attributes as well. If you have real objects there, you can navigate down the hierarchy to any level.
And same thing with bean reference. So if you add the name of a bean, then you can invoke the method you want.
Right. We are going to look at somewhat similar thing very quickly. The support for SpringAL also works in the application event publishing feature for Spring. So that's a possibility to have some kind of messaging within your application. You can attach event listeners to that, and they can react on messages you are publishing in specific services, for example, or on specific user actions, imports, whatever. And we have this little gutter icon here, which shows us a navigation possibility to navigate to the event listeners which match the corresponding publisher. So
which match the event type typically. So if you send an event of a certain type and there is a listener actually matching that type, you'll get the link, and it will be a bidirectional link. So if you go on the listener, you can see where such event is being published in your project.
Right, which is this icon here. So I can go to all the matching event publishers, determined by the type of event POJO we are using here, which is the order event. Very stupid. We just got the question, can you navigate to properties? Yes, you can. So that's this. Again, semantic knowledge about the event listener stuff, making all the specific variables available in this SpringAL context.
XML now.
Right.
Anybody interested? Or we just skip it? Or?
No, there's some nice features in XML, and we put a lot of efforts in this. So I'm sorry. Yes.
They make an 1st of April joke about that once.
Yeah. So the question was, is there a way to convert XML to Java config automatically? Yes, there was one. It was activated only once, and on 1st of April, apparently nobody saw it. Of course, it was a prank. So this is not going to happen. It's just too complicated to do this, realistically. Yeah, and people did wired things with XML. Now they found out more wired things to do with Java config, and we cannot match those two worlds.
They do a wild thing with Java config too, trust me.
So again, we have the same warning you saw just on the top of the editor, that this XML file is not mapped into any Spring context. I'm setting up another one.
By the way, you don't have to create one context every time. You can have only one that combine everything. We're just doing this for demonstration purposes, but you don't have to do that.
Yeah. So I'm just doing this to separate all the resulting beans clearly for each demonstration, so they don't overlap and make things not work. So we have two beans here, one called simple bean and one called auto-wired bean. So we're using auto-wiring here. This can be done specifically on a bean per bean base. I activated here globally on the whole configuration with default auto-wiring by type. Let's just take a very quick look into the corresponding Java classes.
And you see that you get the same gutter icon, the same type in the XML configuration file.
Right. So we have here a setter dependency for the auto-wired bean. We're going to change this very soon.
It's not fill injection, so that's good.
So I can actually navigate to the corresponding bean, which is going to be auto-wired at runtime, and IntelliJ resolved this just for me now, according or against the context. It found that one candidate. So what happens when I accidentally duplicate a bean? And you see all things go red. So it cannot auto-wire by type because we have two beans of the same type. We have to help it. And there's actually intention action to show us the matching bean candidates, which could be auto-wired at runtime. Okay, I should name them differently. So now we got the two beans, and a very nice shortcut I want to show you is the action show quick definition. This works anywhere, or mostly anywhere, where you have some kind of pop-up list, and it works in auto-completion as well. And when I invoke this action, what will happen is you open an additional floating tool window, which shows you the very declaration of the currently selected element. So you don't have to select this element, control-click on it to see what it's actually about, but you can see this right from the completion, make an educated choice about which of the candidates you're going to choose, and you don't have to open and close editors just to see what is behind this name or this class or whatever element is just shown in the list.
The
Sorry,
shortcut.
the shortcut is Command-Shift-I. The shortcuts are shown on the bottom of the screen. So yeah, that's a shortcut you should really try to memorize and use, or try to use anywhere you have lists. No, that's a feature which has been available for a long time, but too many people don't know about it, so we included it. So I'm just going to revert this duplication here, and there's a warning here on the auto-wiring attribute here, which allows us to make these auto-wired dependencies explicit. So why would we do this, or want to do this?
Remove the magic and make your XML configuration more explicit, so that you can actually see exactly what's going to happen. So again, same shortcut suggestion, and the editor will do it for you.
So now, when we go here, we actually see the gutter icon changed from auto-wired candidate navigation to bean property definition. So you see it right in the code what is going to happen at runtime with whatever Spring magic you apply to it and some configuration file. That's very nice, I think. If we had more dependencies on that bean, it would become a quite long list. So I'm just quickly showing an intention, which is to convert this property tag into a p namespace notation. I don't know how many of you know about this, but it's a very nice way to make the declaration shorter by using the specific namespace, and it will work exactly the same way. It's just a different way of writing it in your XML file. And of course, you don't do this by hand. There's an intention to do this. Okay, I think we are slowly running out of time.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to skip the rest of the XML stuff. Again, the script has all the other cool features. Very quick jump into Spring MVC, your favorite web framework.
So there's been a lot of improvement in the Spring MVC support in the latest version, and especially the what we're going to show you is a complete link between your actions and the model, and knowledge of the available views based on your configuration. So IntelliJ IDE is parsing your configuration, figuring out what kind of templating engine you're using, how it's configured, and based on that, it will provide you inspection and suggestions in many places.
So what we have here is a very, very basic Spring MVC application using the annotation-based setup. So no more XML, no more web XML required, extending a base class for this configuration. What you have to remember, if you want to set up Spring MVC in IntelliJ, you have to add a web facet. to make it work, because we have to know about the web resource routes in your application. And we cannot, again, make an educated guess about this, because they could be anywhere. So you have to tell the IDE where they are located in your project. So when we do this, what will happen actually is the IDE is smart enough to detect that we have some kind of Spring MVC context here. And this is one of the two cases where you don't need to do, and you must not do, any kind of manual configuration in the Spring facet. Spring MVC and Spring Boot, don't do it. Let the IDE figure it out, because we have specific rules we can follow here, and they work. So just don't touch it. We will rush through this a bit, because we also want to show a bit of Spring Boot. We have a controller here. Again, Gata icons. And they allow us actually to navigate to the corresponding view this controller is using. This also respects the corresponding view resolvers you actually have defined in your Spring MVC application. So we are smart enough to detect you have some JSP view resolver, you have some free marker view resolver, whatever view resolver you have, you can even redefine prefix, suffix, whatever. We will figure this out and do the same thing that Spring will do at runtime to resolve the corresponding view.
So does it work with the composite view resolver as well?
Yes. Yes, it works also with composite view resolvers.
So can you show the auto-completion here quickly?
Yes. Very quickly, we can also navigate to the model variables you are defining in your controller. So I can go here and see that this attribute is actually added to this model and view context here. And here I have another one which goes to free marker. And it works here in the same way. So that's a very nice thing to build up forms and stuff like this. And there's much more coming there very soon.
There is also the inspection to show you all the path in the auto-completion. Can you quickly show that?
I'm not sure what you mean.
The pop-up with all the action mapping.
Ah, right. There's a very quick way to access any controller by using the URI. Go to symbol, press / as the prefix, and it will show you all the matching controllers. So as I start typing, it will narrow down the list accordingly. And there's obviously one specific entry here with some weird URI. Very quickly, this is using a pass variable, which allows you to pass in variables via the URI. Again, the IDE knows about this, so I can control click here. I can rename the stuff, and so on and so on. You get the picture. Just try to use the features in any context and see if IntelliJ knows about this. Okay.
Spring Boot.
Spring Boot.
Okay, so one thing we wanted for the Spring Boot project is to really improve the getting started experience. Get you started super quickly. You start writing your business logic and try it. And we've introduced DevTools recently to offer you a feedback loop that's even faster. What we meant to do with the JetBrains guys on the tooling side is a way for you to create a new project and have like everything configured for you. So there is an integration with start.spring.io. Who knows start.spring.io? Okay, that's 50%. So start.spring.io, try that if you like. It's a service that allows you to create an empty project with a set of dependencies. So basically, you go there, you shop for dependencies. You click Generate Project, it will give you a zip file with a project configured with Maven or Gradle. And you have that integration in the tooling directly. So you follow a few steps and you get a new project up and running. That's actually using the same service behind the scenes.
Right, and here we have the list of all starters available from start.spring.io. And the nice thing is actually you can select the Spring Boot version, and according to the version, some starters are available or not available. And you can see why they are not available by just hovering over them and see what Spring Boot version is required if you want to use them. So we are just going to use nothing.
Web, maybe?
Right, web. No, I am stuck on this stupid screen.
Okay. No web then.
Again? No, we can do it. So we are just going to select one dependency, which is the web dependency, if I can reach it on this.
So one thing that that Withered will do on top of what you get if you go on start.spring.io directly is opening the project directly, but also configuring the application context, configuring the Spring facet for you, and creating a run configuration for you. So basically, you can just start coding. Everything is set up for you already.
Quick proof, Spring facet is there. Spring Boot application is auto-detected here, and no need to do anything manually.
And reference to your application configuration as well. So when you'll start, if you have custom properties, for instance, it will know about it.
Right. Very quick, going back again, we have this model dependencies diagram. When I open this, apparently there's only one main config, the main class of the Spring Boot application. It becomes more interesting when I enable showing the nodes which are located in the library classes. So what we see here is auto configuration by Spring Boot in action. And this is what IntelliJ understands of the auto configuration. So this is not provided by Spring Framework, but within the IDE. So what is auto configuration?
So yeah, so that's one of the core topics of Spring Boot. These are the things that may be activated on startup depending on conditions. So depending on the fact that you may have that library on the class path, you may have that property in your config. So these are the things that may happen at runtime. And what's really nice here is that IntelliJ IDE knows some of them and can even give you hints for things that are auto-configured right in the IDE, depending on the context.
Okay, so we have to speed up a bit here and cancel a bit of features because we're running out of time. Just a very quick introduction into configuration. So Spring Boot can be configured using very simple configuration files. So you can tune the default behavior of the auto configuration, override defaults, or add specific other stuff. You can do the same with your own configuration beans. There's the add configuration properties annotation.
You saw that at the keynote, yeah.
Yeah. So and IntelliJ will understand all of this, help you with setting up all of this, give you the auto completion as well. Do we have time to show this?
Probably not.
No, I guess not.
So, okay, so we still have 3 minutes for questions, I guess.
So yeah, please shoot your questions. And again, the project is available on GitHub. So there's a few more things we didn't get around to do in this round. If you want to explore a bit more by yourself, you're welcome to download the project and give us feedback, of course. So questions, please. Yes.
Yeah, you just showed the new project with the starter. And if you notice that you need one more dependency, is there any feature that you just add afterwards?
Yes, that's actually a nice thing. We can show this very quickly. So yes, currently there is no way to add this after you run the Spring Initializer wizard. So you have to modify your Gradle or Maven accordingly, which is very easy because they all follow a common naming pattern.
And you have auto-completion.
Yeah. So, but there's one specific nice feature which is
detection of well-known annotations.
Yeah. So we can write some annotation names, and sorry, the IDE has a list of predefined annotations which are commonly used, as well as a couple of commonly used base classes or interfaces. And in this case, it will give you the hint to add this corresponding starter. So when I do this, it will actually add the starter to my POM, and I can just keep on coding. So here it is. It works for a few limited cases.
And
so,
if there are more that you know and you would like them to be added in the IDE, it's really easy. Just create an issue and I'm sure that they will add it.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
There was a question in the back, yeah.
So I have a Spring Boot project with DevTools enabled. And what drives me crazy is that there's a lot of things that the the JVM can hot replace automatically, where it wouldn't need to reboot the context. And so I always have like 60% of all my changes would be hot replaceable, and it's rebooting the context, which takes substantially longer. So is there some smarts coming up for being smarter to reload the hot replace versus reload?
That's a question for you, right? Oh, that's a question for me, sorry. I'm not aware of anything of the kind. And right now, I have no idea how we could actually detect that. But what? Okay, use Jarable here, but okay, that's not me. You can try that. But I would advise you to create an issue in the tracker because, I mean, that's an interesting feedback and I can't reply right now, but we can continue the discussion on the tracker. Yeah.
One guy behind.
Regarding this last question, what we are doing in this case, we are using dev tools and disable the restart of the application. And in combination, we are using Spring Loaded as an agent.
Yeah.
That
So
does a replacement.
That would be something. But then for the things that are not for the 40% case, then it's a cold restart. So that's the drawback. We have.
First question you mentioned.
You have the
Yes,
mic.
Okay, first question, you mentioned submit a book. So there is a book in IntelliJ IDEA site about the provided dependencies that are not, and I believe 3 years already.
Yes.
And this is creating some not pleasant experience with Spring Boot, let's say. So
If you're using one, probably.
yeah.
Don't do that.
So
we have to,
yeah, there is a problem with Maven dependencies in provided scope, which is the default for Tomcat, I think, right?
Yep.
Which causes quite a lot of problems in IntelliJ. We are very aware of this bug. There's a huge amount of votes on this, and I put a huge amount of pressure on the guys working on this. So I really hope we are going to fix this in the summer release. But yeah.
This doesn't sound like a hard problem.
It is a hard problem, because otherwise we would have fixed it long time ago. I'm sorry.
Okay, we're running out of time. Thank you very much.
Yep.